Hello, everybody. Welcome. So lovely to see you here. We're going to be talking today about how to spot some of the signs that you could be burning out. Lexi, if you just raise your hand at the bottom, I will be able to bring you on to speak with me. And in the meantime, I would love to know from everybody else if you could just give me a thumbs up if you can hear everything okay. Oh, thanks, Isabel. Wonderful. Great. So, thanks, Billy. Excellent. Really happy to see you all here today. Such an important topic that I absolutely love talking about because I personally am on a mission to make burnout a thing of the past. I think it is something that we just don't need in the world of work going forwards. And I am really excited today to be joined by Lexi, who has her own rather dramatic experience of having been through the process of burnout to share with us and to help us think about what are the signs that we might be wanting to look for as we go throughout our daily lives and our work lives, which might be flags that we need to start taking a little bit more care of ourselves, or potentially start asking our employers, our workplaces for some accommodations to help us feel better. So before I dive in and ask Lexi all of the questions that I have been thinking of, let me just explain. This is a little bit like Clubhouse if you've never been here before. So I will chat to Lexi and ask her some questions for probably about 10 to 15 minutes. And then I will open it up for everybody who is listening if they would like to ask any questions themselves. You have a little button at the bottom that looks like a raised hand, and that is like a request to speak button. So if you would like to ask something at any point, please do feel free to join in. This is so much more fun when it is a broader conversation. So before I get in, Lexi, please introduce yourself to everyone. Tell us a little bit about you, where you are now, and perhaps a quick overview of your story, because it is really quite amazing.
Hi, Charlotte. Thank you so much for having me. As you said, my name's Lexi. I actually do sales now for ADP, the human capital management company. I help sell payroll. I help sell health and benefit insurance to small businesses, retirement, and I just kind of I wanted to stay within the business realm. And then so I thought focusing on small businesses would be a great thing for me. And I really enjoy my job now at ADP. And then I also have my own side company that I'm trying to build up. It's a professional women's networking company where I work with female entrepreneurs and female professionals who just are kind of who might be struggling in their jobs or looking for like a change and just don't know where to go. So as a resource for everyone to connect with one another.
Such a useful thing to have. I mean, I know that it's often really easy to know kind of what we don't want, and we know we want to change, and we know that what we have isn't right for us, but narrowing in on what's that one thing that's going to be better is really tough. So all of the support we can get is always so helpful.
Oh, yes, for sure. And I feel like it's just like, a way to keep each other grounded and be like, wow, okay, like, you see other people who are struggling with the same things as you. So you don't feel alone anymore and you don't feel like crazy.
Yes. Always so handy to know that you are neither of those things. So
yes, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, obviously burnout stories are very personal and often quite emotional, but I would love it if you could share as much as you feel comfortable with about your experience leading up to when you did burnout. So several years ago now, right?
No, so this was actually pretty recently,
Okay.
So burnout for me, what that looked like, it was just, I was working within the hospitality industry, and it was constantly moving. Like our work emails would go off 24/7 globally, because we were a global company. And it was just, I didn't have the resources that I needed with my manager. She was just not very helpful. I reached out to her a couple of times and had meetings and stuff where I was like, hey, listen, like, something's not right. Like the role is challenging for me, and it was just not a nice feeling. And it was kind of just like never. I think what happened was like where my manager just lacked the accountability, where she was able to say, listen, like, yeah, I know, like maybe this isn't working, or maybe able to like come to terms with that. So I was like, okay. And then, like, signs that I started noticing for me when I was burning out was just like I would go home at night and I wouldn't be able to sleep. I would stay up all night. I'd finally get sleep around like 4 a.m. and then have to wake up at like 6
Mm.
a.m. to go to the office. Like I had ringing in my ears and I didn't even know that this was a thing. I was just like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, why is my health tanking?
Yeah.
Like other things have like, like just when you are in these like stress induced environments and you're not feeling heard, you're not feeling listened to, like all these things start happening. So like I started hearing like a ringing in my ears. There was one time when I was at work and like half of my face froze. Like I
Oh
really
my.
could not even, yeah, I couldn't even like smile on half of my face because of just like the amount of like stress and like pressure. And I was like, what is going on here? So that's when I started to realize, I was like, you know what, maybe this is something, maybe this is not just like me in my head, maybe this is like something more. So then I started seeing a therapist and I started going over like the things that I was going through in my like daily work schedules. And even my therapist was like, yeah, no, this doesn't sound good. Like you should really, like we can try medication, and you can also look for another job. So then it was like really hard and tough decision for me because like I love the company and I love the work that I was doing, and it was something that I had always wanted to do, and I didn't want to feel like I was like failing myself or like quitting, because like I've never been a quitter, and I've always been a person who's been strong enough to like handle like tough situations. But then it just really just became like a question of, okay, am I going to really want to put myself through this and endure this? Like my body is physically telling me it can't do this,
Yeah.
like from like the not being able to sleep, the ringing in the ears. I was having like really bad stomach problems. Just like my migraines were like at an all-time like high, and it was just like it really was starting to affect me physically. And I was like, okay, like this is when I need to kind of ask myself, like, is any job worth this? And then I was like, I don't think so. So then I
Yeah.
just started, and then like my work relationship, like I was looking like, I guess like my manager at the time, she can even like would be say like, you don't look, you don't. You're not yourself. Like you don't seem happy. Like you seem drawn out. You seem like not excited about the work that you're doing. And it was like very much true. I was not happy anymore as like I had been like when I first started. So I was like, okay. And then so I just started applying for jobs, and I went back to sales because I had tried sales before, and it was like an industry that I never really thought about. Um, but then I was like, it's kind of similar to the role that I was doing then, which was public relations. And I was like, okay, like maybe I can give this another go. Like I did have a good time in sales when I was there. I had to do sales during the pandemic because I got furloughed during that time, and PR just wasn't a thing at that time. And then it was actually something that I found, fun, and like it was fun and it was hard work, but it wasn't that 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 hard work that pushed you to that point. So I was like, okay. So then I started applying to sales jobs. I found ADP and I love the company and I love like the team that I was on or that I'm on now. And I love like just my coworkers and everything else. So I just found like an environment that was more fitting for me. And I think, like that was like the best decision I ever made. I remember when I got the call that they said like, oh, we would love to hire you. I said yes without even thinking about it. And then it wasn't until I think about like maybe like a week later, the panic started setting in when I was like, oh my God, I actually accepted a new job. I don't even know what I'm gonna do. Like I don't even think like I didn't even think about it. I just did it. I was kind of like on autopilot mode. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do? I hope this is right, because like, I was so excited about the job that I had, and I finally had felt like I like quote unquote made it. But that job, it just wasn't doing it for me. So I was like,
I
okay,
think
I
that's
took this new job.
I think
Yeah.
that's such an important thing. I just want to pause so that we can kind of reflect on that. First, I would love to know from anybody who's listening, pop as a reaction if you resonate with anything that Lexi was talking about there. But I also want to pull up, you mentioned just some super, super important points around how to spot the signs that you're burning out. And I think a lot of the time, we focus on kind of like the bad side of it, but it is that piece. Oh wow, lots of people resonating there. Dee, Tracy, and Bethany. Yeah, so it's that piece of, you feel like you've made it, you really wanted this job that you got, you really care about the organization that you were working for, and then you find yourself in that job and the reality is just not what you were expecting, and that kind of mismatch of expectation is kind of the basis of that problem, well, quote unquote problem, that you like you said, you're a strong person, you're not a quitter, you're not going to give up, you're going to make it through, you want to give your best, and all of these things are really, really positive qualities, but taken to the extreme, and then in that environment that isn't perfect for you or isn't as supportive as you need, they can then lead to those feelings of stress, and as you mentioned, just that host of physical health symptoms that I think we often forget about when we're talking about burnout. We think that it's all psychological, it's all about stress and insomnia or anxiety or something like that, but actually, you are talking about a lot of like really, quite serious sounding physical side effects. I'm curious to know, did you take any time off? Did you, was there any sick leave involved there, or were you just like working the whole way through right up till the point when you decided to change careers?
I was working the whole way through until I decided to change careers. Unfortunately, in the crazy expensive world that we live in, I don't really have that option to like not, like work or just take some time off. I don't really have like that luxury right now. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to have to, like I was taking some personal time and I did take some vacation time, but not enough to where you're like, okay, I'm able to, maybe take a month off to like refresh. I like, unfortunately, I can't really do that, but it worked out in the end. And like I figured it out.
Yeah. And what is so different about ADP compared to your previous role that means that you now feel supported and, for want of a better word, kind of safer in that environment, compared to where you were before?
Yeah, so I think that there's just like a stark difference between the two, because before, like I had maybe like I had one supervisor and then like a bunch of other like pseudo supervisors that everyone just constantly needed things from me. But in my role at ADP now, like even before I started, like I have my supervisor, but I was also assigned a mentor before starting the role, and my mentor is a person who was like maybe like one notch above me, who is in the role currently and can like give their insights. So I think
Oh, as I lost you for a moment there.
hello.
Oh, there you go. You're back.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was talking and then it just closed out. But okay, I'm back. So I don't know what part closed out, but basically, like the difference between ADP and my other company now, or my other company before, was that like I think it's just the difference of like the setup, like the managerial setup. Like I had like one supervisor at my other company with a bunch of pseudo managers who all always constantly like looked for their support with everything. Where now at ADP I have one supervisor and she kind of helps assist the whole team, but there's other people within my role, like who are at the same level as me, who are all doing the same thing. And then, like at ADP, you're given a mentor even before you start. So you can sort of feel comfortable at the company and comfortable within the role. You can ask questions before you start, and someone who just can give you that like inside look. So I think it's like bit better that way. And I feel like now that ADP, like, you know, like it is a sales job, so it's just like, you know, it's like the contacts, like you're really able to focus on the contacts and the relationships that you're building now. Whereas in my other role, it was just kind of me, like I was expected to build relationships and with contacts with people in media, but then also I was also expected to help assist with everybody's like administrative tasks and like all of these other things that kept like piling and piling on. Also at ADP, we're given like different tools and like updated technology that we're able to that help us that like assists with our administrative tasks, so it doesn't make them feel as daunting. And then like everything, you know, like if you are struggling somewhere, you are definitely able to reach out to your manager, whoever, for help, and they're more they're more able to help you in that sense.
Yeah.
And you know, like I feel comfortable asking questions now, whereas before I didn't really feel comfortable asking questions.
Such an important one. There's so much evidence to say that like the key factor in determining whether or not people do burn out or not is to do with that working environment and feeling, as you say, like connected to people, feeling supported, feeling as though they can be themselves, and also, yeah, if they need to ask a question, it's going to be a safe thing. So yeah, that sounds like you've definitely found an environment that's much more nurturing, shall we say.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so before I open up to see if anybody else would like to ask you any questions or weigh in with their own experiences on this one, I would love to ask, you know, if you think back to your experience leading up to that burnout, what advice would you have for people? What was there kind of a moment when you were like, oh my God, this is more than just, you know, a bad week? Or what's your kind of reflection?
I think it's definitely helpful to, you know, like just pull out a pen and paper, or, you know, like take out like a Word document if you're more on the digital side, and just kind of list the things that feel off to you. Because I think for me, like a lot of the time, like there were like whenever there were situations that occurred that were like quote unquote off, like I just kind of ignored them. And I was like, oh no, it's fine. It's like, you know, just like kind of like brushing it off. But then like when I went back and I started like listing all the things that were off to me and like off that was happening, I was like, this isn't right. This isn't, you know. And then I like listed them all, and I was like, wow, that's like a really heavy and long list of things that I've just been like pushing off for a while. And then so I think that's like what helps. That's like what helped me to realize like, okay, this is not just in my head. This is not just me like complaining, or like whatever you might think you, or like whatever you might have that self-doubt about. But it was like, no, this is actually serious. Okay, from this list, this is like, you know, like that kind of helped me to know like, wow, okay, so I'm not just crazy, I'm not just like I'm not just, you know, like being whatever. This is actually serious. So I think making a list helps. And then also like, you know, like don't be afraid to talk about your experiences. Like I think the worst thing to do is just like, I've always been a person who just like kind of like holds everything in and kind of like suffer in silence, as my mom would say. But definitely don't do that. That is probably the worst thing that you can do, because that just, you know, that doesn't do anything for you, but help you feel like those like physical things that was happening to me. So it's just like, okay, talk to people, talk to like your friends, talk to like, if you have a mentor, talk to your mentor. If you have a therapist, talk to your therapist, talk to everybody, and just kind of like say, you know, like is, you know, like if you really don't know if it's that, if it's you, or if it's like the company, or if it's the situation that you're in.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's so easy for us to, I mean, borderline gaslight ourselves that we're not having that bad of an experience, and we should just, you know, for want of a better term, because I think most of us listening at the moment are ladies, we should man up and you know, just power on through and you know, and be stronger. Whereas realistically, you know, you are having the experience that you're having, and that is true and valid, whether you like it or not. You know, I mean, and there are definitely moments where we're like, gosh, I really wish I were feeling differently right now. But pretending that it isn't happening is, yeah, absolutely not going to make it better. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Okay, everybody. So I'm going to open it up now. If you have a question that you would like to ask, or an experience that you would like to share, or an opinion that you would like to share, something that you think that other people would find useful, please do feel free to pop your hand up, and I will bring you up so that you can join in the conversation. And while you're all thinking, I will remind you of the typical, so normally when people talk about the signs that you're burning out, these kind of official definition involves basically feeling depleted or exhausted, feeling disconnected from your job, or negative or cynical about that, and feeling as though you are less efficient than you would normally be in your job. And I think those are all really, really useful things to keep an eye out for, particularly if the being in touch with your feelings side of things is not your strong point or something that you like to do. But it is also important to remember that recognizing those things in yourself does take a little bit of distance. And sometimes when we are beginning to burn out, we don't have that necessary distance to be able to see that from ourselves. And what we think is, we're just really busy, and next week is going to be better. It's fine. After this month, things are going to calm down, and then I will be fine. And all of those kind of thoughts that you might be having are potentially flags that you want to check in and see, how is your health? Are you sleeping well? Are you able to switch off at the end of the day? And certainly if you get to the point that Lexi did, where half of your face is freezing, definitely seek medical attention. Okay, so you mentioned, I don't see any hands coming up. So you mentioned, Lexi, that one of the things you did when you kind of noticed that things weren't going well is that you spoke to a therapist. Did you try any other sort of supports or activities or anything else that to try and manage that stressful situation before you actually did get to the burnout stage?
Oh yeah. So I mean, it was definitely hard to balance because, I also noticed that during my time, like it was hard for me to do like activities, like personal activities that were like important to me. So, like I do Bollywood dancing on like on my days off or on the weekends and stuff. So like that's like something that I would go and do, or I would go out and like hike with my friends or around like upstate New York, or just like feeling up, even feeling up to the challenge of just hanging out with your friends was definitely difficult for me, because it was just like, when I was finally like off of work, all I wanted to do was just like lay in my bed and like not do anything, and just like have the lights low, have the curtains closed, and just like kind of like mindlessly like watch television to, I guess, like feel some sort of like breath of fresh air, whatever, from that. But I was just like so depleted of energy and just like anything. And that's typically not me, because I'm a very social person. I love being around people. I love trying new things. And so like that's when I noticed, like when that part of my personality was no longer like a thing, that's when I was like, okay, that's also a bad sign. But I did try doing dance, and I did talk to a therapist, and, just like, kind of trying to like see if anything that I like, like trying to enjoy the little things that I did enjoy normally. And once that wasn't working, that's also was a very like sign, like a blatant sign in my face that was like, oh yeah, you need to stop and really reflect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a really good point to raise. Like, if you notice just changes in the way that you would, things that you used to find fun, like the dancing, that you're suddenly like, oh, this is no longer exciting to me. That's definitely also a sign that it's probably worth, as you say, taking a step back, making some changes. So any final words you would like to leave us with today before we come to an end today?
Yeah. So like I said, like kind of just like going off of what I said before, listen to your body. Your body You know, like I know it's hard sometimes, and I know it's like, you know, we treat our like mental health just as, you know, like sometimes as it's not as important, but it definitely is. And when it starts manifesting physically, that is a tall tale sign to just sort of stop and reflect on like what's going on in your life. You know, like if you're not feeling joy, like, you know, like I know everyone always says like it's in your 9 to 5, you know, whatever, you might not love it, but like you should, there should be a part of you that loves your job, and there should be a part of you that like really like feels inspired or feels like whatever about what you're doing. And if you're just not feeling that anymore, maybe you did at first, then that's like a good sign. I think too, like also like stay strong, which I know it's hard, but if this is happening to you, just like stay strong and don't be afraid to take those risks, you know, that risky move, whatever you might think is risky, because you don't know, like it definitely could be like the best decision of your life, and it could really just change you and like set you up for success later on.
I love that. That's really, really great advice. And the only thing I would add is don't be afraid to reach out for help. And whether that is, you know, from a colleague or a manager or anyone else, there's absolutely no shame in asking for help. And if that is something that you feel like you would need, that is something that I spend my entire time doing. So if you're feeling at the mercy of your inbox and your colleagues and your work life right now, and you would really like to take back control, pop me a message after this event. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about how I can help. So it only remains to say thank you, everybody, for coming and listening in today. I hope you found it fun. And thank you so much, Lexi, for joining us and sharing.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, everybody, for listening in.
All right. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the week. And yeah, take care of yourselves and make sure that you get some rest.
Yes. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.